Let's get started. Excuse me. So the application is running, and here is where we are. So today we'll see one very important concept in single page app. So you may already know what is a single page application. So if you don't know it, it's the current industry trend to build the application where for the first time there would be one page loaded. This is going to be your main page, and apart this page may have some components such as header and footer, or maybe your sidebar, something like that. And this is going to be pretty much remain same throughout the pages, while there would be some dynamic content, and this is where you replace the views. Maybe it is home component, about component, products, and so on and so forth. So this is where, rather than loading all the static content again and again, there would be one page reload for the first time when you access the application. The subsequent request would be doing an AJAX request to get the HTML or components. So that actually improves the user experience to a great deal because we are not reloading the entire page. So the pages are fast and user get a feel like a desktop like application. Yeah, it's not going to be exactly like a desktop application. Desktop application is very, very fast, but at least we are getting closer to that desktop application experience. If not exactly that experience, at least close to that. So it's probably Gmail is the first application to be built as a single page application. Gmail, at the time of Gmail, there was no Angular. Google has used Ajax to build the entire Gmail. Gmail is a single page app. If you, after this session, go back and check that out, there will be one page reload for the first time when you open Gmail. And after that, no matter what you're trying to do, there would be just behind the scenes pages would be loaded. You won't notice any page reloads. So that's what we will try to do it here. So I want to have routing. Routing is very, very important here because you want to move from one page to another, and that routing has to happen at the client side, not at the server side. We had routing even in traditional applications where you'll have links, something like this, and you click on it and it will reload the entire page. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about routing at the client side. There would be routing at server side. When we built Node.js application or Express application, there were routes. Here, I want my routes to be on the client side. So let's see how can we achieve that. So we are not yet in a position to start writing application. First, we need at least this header. This header is needed so that I can have my links. User can click on it. User is not going to enter URL on the URL bar. So let's see how can we achieve that. So we already have Bootstrap. We're going to do pretty much what we did in probably Express MVC app. So go to app component. And here I would like to have, I'll remove this app home. It's not needed. I would like to have my header. So I'll go with header tag. I want this tag to be a container itself. And then I will have a nav bar. I want black color nav bar. So I'll just say nav bar inverse. Then I would like to have a name for this app. And that's going to be anything. And then I'll have some links. So I won't give any link tags at this moment, href, no href attribute. So just go with basic li and anchor tags. Say about, and this is what is important for us, and contact page. So I'll have some dummy pages here, and I'll go with some classes here, maybe navbar, nav. Okay, if everything goes good, I should see my navbar. Here it is. It's there, and it doesn't work. That's okay, but at least I made some progress. Some progress. Excuse me. And now the same way I would like to have a footer. I want this footer to be a container because this container class gives you 12 column with grid and adds some margin around it. So I would like to have a span tag and say ampersand copy 2018. Some dummy message, not really important. Okay, here it is. And it's all messed up. Don't worry about that. We'll fix it. Or just fix straight away. Say container, make this a container class and put your product list component there. So we're not yet discussing routing. We're not in that position still. First, let's do the groundwork. Yeah, seems to be fine at this moment. And now this app product component has too much of content here. If you notice, we have header and we have footer, and this one is going to go anyway eventually. But again, this is it is highly discouraged that you, I mean, make this whole component a monolithic rather than having smaller components. So always a good idea. Nobody's going to stop you from moving this content to a component, and that's a good practice. So I want my header component to be a header content to be on its own component. So let's cut this and create our header component. This component doesn't exist yet, so let's create it. I'll use Angular CLI to save some time. Say gc. Okay, we'll talk about this. We have talked about inline template and separate file. If you omit this flag, that would create a separate file. Inline styles, we'll talk about that. And specs, definitely end of this course, we'll be talking about unit testing. Don't worry about these things. Now go to header component and try to paste the code that we have copied. Just get rid of the code that is not necessary. This component is going to be dumb. It will not have any logic. So no need of a constructor, nor do I need any other method. Okay. With this in place, our app component is clean. And I don't see any difference. Right. Now let's go ahead and move this to a footer component because that makes more sense rather than having this footer logic here. So it's up to you how huge your footer can be. If you have a lot of content in footer, and nowadays it's kind of a trend to have a lot of content inside footer. You'll have social networking icons, you'll have the entire menu as links in the footer and so on. That can be huge. So it's a good idea you move it to a separate component. So let's run the command again by modifying some values here. Okay, CLI does its job. Go to footer component as usual, clean up. Don't worry about anything at this moment. Just paste the code. I don't need styles either. Save this. Here it is. Everything is again same and nothing is broken. Now let's go ahead and create some more components. I think I already have about component. Go to about component here. Yep, I already have that one. I have home component. Go to home component. Yes, I already have that one. And I'll go to my contact component is missing. Let's go ahead and create that one. So it's not going to have any hardcore logic, but just to play around with routing. So just to give you information, You cannot just create components using Angular CLI, but you can create pretty much everything. Module, a service, a class, and a component, everything pretty much. You can do it here, even a directive. Go to contact component and get rid of this. Just say contact page. Yes, that's it. Now let's focus on this routing. So when I click on certain home component or on this link, I should see home component shown here. When I click on about, I should see the about component. Where should I see? That's the question. I should be seeing here. So you have to define the area where you want to replace the component dynamically. That's very important. So let's go ahead and define that. How would you define it? Go to your app component, because that's where your entire logic is. So get rid of this app product list. Here you say, okay, this is my dynamic stuff. So you use a directive inbuilt, which is router outlet. So this is an inbuilt directive, and it is part of routing module or router module, if I remember correctly. So with this one change, now you should be broken. The reason is obvious, because this is part of some other module and I don't have an import statement for that in my module. And if you notice it, you'll see that router outlet is not a known element. That must be the error in the console. Here it is. So let's go back to app module and try to import that module. So I would like to put all of my modules here on top. I believe it is a router module. It is part of Angular router library. This seems to be right. Add an import statement. So now our module app, which is a root module, is dependent on 5 different modules. Save this. Okay. I don't see anything still, but anyhow, there is an error. That's okay, because we are not yet done. So you may see that error. Don't worry about that. Now let's go back to this one and try to remove this and see if we get back up and running. Okay, we have something to show. But anyway, let's do a control Z, go to app module, and I would like to put my routes here. So I'm going to say constant, because these routes are not going to change. So we have learned what is constant in probably Node.js session. It is of type route array. So it can be of any type, but again, it's a good idea that you go with a strongly typed object. So route is part of Angular router. This helps you a little bit when where you have typos in your property names or you have misspelled something. That's when it helps having a strongly typed object. Here, this is going to be an array. And in this array, you will have some configuration like a routing. So you're going to say path. When this is the path means URL, you are going to say the component to be shown is home component. See, the home component is strongly typed. It's not in single quotes. It is a reference. And the same way, I'll have my other routes. I'll say when path is about, the component to be shown is about component. The same way contact, and I would like to have another routing for products. So actually you don't need these slashes. You'll get an error if you have these slashes. Let me get rid of them. Okay. When path is products, I'm saying show me product list component. Okay, this is my routing. Let's save this. Now we should see something in output. We will not. The reason is it's just a variable. We haven't done anything. So you'll say router module dot for root. This is a root module. So I'm going to say these are my routes configuration. Pretty straightforward. We're using router module dot for root method to configure my routes. Rather than having this array here, I'm saving it in a separate variable and I'm referencing them. It is constant because it's never going to change here. So that makes more sense to be a constant. See, now I'm saying homepage. I cannot navigate, but when I say about, I should see about page, which means about component. See, I'm saying, I'll say contact page, go to products. Now I should see my list of products. It makes a web service call and fetches the products and binds the data. Here it is. So that's routing. But if you have noticed here, it's not actually a single page. It's reloading the entire page. So don't worry about that when we add links, and that's going to fix the issue. So go to header component. That's where our links are. So rather than saying href, there is one inbuilt directive by the name router link available. So here it is as good as href, and it will take care of creating a link for you. Say about products contact. Save this. This is also part of router module. We have already imported router module, and we have our contact page. This is how the single page app works. First time it reloads, and the subsequent requests are going to be loaded behind the scenes. And this actually enhances the user experience. There is very little lag, and it is actually a pleasing experience. Any questions so far with routing setup? So I'll say app module.ts. Let me summarize once. Okay, what is dummy error? Yesterday we have created that one. If you remember, go to product list. So I was demonstrating the services for providers. See file logger we have created, and I said dummy error just to show you. So I'll remove that. So that's the error that I've simulated. There is nothing. Yep. Let's go ahead and one more time summarize things because this is complex a little bit. A lot of pieces we have taken care. First thing, I've imported this router module. The second thing, I've configured my routes, and the route configuration is it's an array because there are going to be more than one route, and each route is an object of type route inbuilt class. And on top of that, we have path and component properties like that, contacts, products, and we have defined our routes. And once that is done, I've used for root method of the router module to configure my routes. And then finally, in the app component, I need to say where to replace the content dynamically based on the user request. And that is nothing but router outlet. So you're saying, okay, here is where replace the content dynamically. Okay. So now with that in place, we are not yet done with routing. Routing is complex and there are a lot of other concepts also involved. This is a simple form of routing. We'll see complex forms as well, but slowly. So when I click on this image, I want my detail page to be shown. I want to navigate to detail page, product detail. So how can I do that? First thing, I need to have a link here. Then only I can navigate. So let's go step by step. Go to product component because this is, even though it looks like a product component is nothing but a composition of smaller product components. So this is a product component. You should go to product component and try to change this to a anchor tag. So probably I'll change it here or anywhere. Anywhere is fine. So I'll use router link instead of href. Right, don't worry about this router link and all those things. Just put an anchor tag, or you want to put the anchor tag around the entire product. It's up to you. For me, this is enough. So when I click on this, nothing happens, but at least this is a link now. So it's a clickable. So when I click on this, I should go to product detail page with the product ID. The product ID is a GUID kind of thing. So something like this. That's where I should be going to when I click on this. So for that, we don't have a route. So for instance, if I try to do that, let's see what happens. I'll say router link. It's going to be product slash and the ID. So I'll use expression here, and the ID is nothing but the product underscore ID. Remember, this is MongoDB unique field. Save this. This would generate a link for me. There is a link if you notice here on the bottom left section of the browser here somewhere. So you have this link generated and each link is different from the other one. And the way I have done this is I've used expression. This is one way. If you don't like it, go with the property binding. The property binding is going to be a little tricky. The reason is this is static. So the static stuff, you would put it inside single quotes and the dynamic content would go inside, inside the double quotes. Okay, looks like I've broken something. Unexpected token, probably a plus is needed. Here it is. Anyway, there is no difference. It's up to you which one you want to use. Probably this is better, this property binding, than the earlier one. So when I was binding a string, you don't need these brackets because anyhow it's a string. It doesn't need to be evaluated. So you don't need property binding. You can directly use router link directive. But if you're binding something dynamically, that's when you need this bracket. So this is not a HTML attribute. This is a directive. We haven't really seen how to build directives. That's later part of this course. But anyway, so let's go ahead and see what happens if I click on this. I'm clicking on this, nothing happens. And there is an error. So I'm clicking on this, there is an error. So the reason is, go back to app module. We have defined our routes. It's like a switch case statement. Think like a switch case. If there is no path, go to home component. If there is about, go to about, and so on. But what if something doesn't match with these values? So user is entering a route, say an invalid route for some reason, intentionally or unintentionally, and nothing happens actually here. Probably your application is broken and you have an error and so on. So in that case, you will usually have, it's impossible to handle all the routes. User may be entering an invalid route. So you'll go with a wildcard route, something like this. You'll say home component. So this is, if it's like a default case in switch case statement. If nothing matches, just go to home component. That's what it means. So let's give it a try. See, no errors. And we are still on home page. Rather than breaking the application, you are actually handling that scenario gracefully. Go to products. Now we don't have product slash ID route. See, it goes to home page. The URL doesn't, URL is this, but you're going to home page. So if you don't want to see that URL, you can probably use something like redirect to. So now you are redirecting user to that route. Let's see if this works. And it's a purely business scenario, which one you want to use, whether you want to use redirect to or component property for this wildcard route. Go to products, click on this, see the URL. Now it's a redirect. So the URL is going to be this one. Anyway, come back. Now the requirement is to have ID route. So path products slash ID is going to be dynamic. So I'll say colon ID, and then component is going to be product detail component, is which doesn't exist yet. So I'll create one. Go ahead and create product detail. Product real component is created. Let's clean up most of the stuff. I'm just going to say product detail. No logic, nothing yet. Now go to our app module. See, now I'm product detail component and the route looks correct like this. So here, now my goal is to retrieve that product using this ID. So I'll copy this ID and I'll try to retrieve that product. So we'll see, we'll do one thing. We'll try to add some records because there are a lot of junk data and it's really hard to differentiate between products. So first thing, anyway, it takes some time to open. Meanwhile, we'll go and try to retrieve a product from the database or from the API here in product detail. Go to product detail component. I'll have a constructor, and this constructor needs an injection product service, and here I'm going to say product service dot get by ID. I'll create a method get by ID and I'll pass an ID, hard-coded ID at this moment, and this will return me an observable. I subscribe to it and I'll get my response and I'll save that response. I'll say this dot product equals to response. And if there is any error, I'm going to say console.log error. This is not the way how you should handle errors, but this at this moment, this is okay. We'll come back and try to see what we can do with this one. I'm going to say product of type any. So this get by ID doesn't exist. Remember, we have decided to put all of our uh, web service calls inside product service. Go to product service and try to create a get by ID method. And this gets an ID from the component class. I'm pretty much going to say return get slash ID, something like this. So you have something like string interpolation in ES6. You can use that. Use backtick rather than using this ugly concatenation operator. So you wrap everything inside single quotes, but this ID is not a string. So it is dynamic. You'll put dollar brace and brace. So if you know C sharp, and this was there in C sharp from probably last couple of years, but ES6 has introduced even this one. This is called string interpolation. So the advantage that you get out of this is the concatenation operator is gone. Now at least it is more readable and it doesn't really confuse. Again, it's strictly not needed, just for an information. Okay, I have my get by ID and I'm getting my data and I'm binding it to this dot product. So I'm just going to say product JSON just to see whether I'm getting data or not. How to present it, I'll think about it later. Go to products, click on this. See, I'm getting the data. If you notice here, there should be a call. Yes, definitely there is, and it's going. The call is success, and I'm getting my preview response. And now the next step is bind it here somewhere. Okay, let's add one product just to differentiate, because there is similar data there in the API. So I'm going to say Samsung S9. Okay, it made it. I'm interested in this ID. I'll just grab the ID here. I'll remove the hard-coded ID and replace it with this one, even though still it is hard-coded. Okay, looks like I'm getting what I've inserted. Now go to products, come back here. You're getting the data. Now let's present it. So simple presentation, I won't spend much time on it. I would like to go with a panel, primary panel. I would like to have a heading. The heading will have the name of the product, or maybe its brand. So it's going to be product dot brand, product dot model. We'll have panel body and panel footer. So let's copy this. So in the footer, I'm going to show the price. And this is going to be a currency. And here I'll show panel dot. Oh, it's not panel, it's product, sorry. Product dot last updated, and this is going to be time. Remember, we have created a time pipe and you can consume it from any of the component in this project. And in the panel body, maybe I would like to show whether it is in stock or not. So I'm going to use an input type checkbox. I'm going to say checked equals to product dot in stock. And I want this text box to be disabled. And What else? That's okay anyway. Okay. Okay, here it is how this looks like. Doesn't matter if that doesn't look great. So let's click on some product. Still you see Samsung Galaxy S9. You click on some product, you still see the same information. The reason is obvious. We have hard coded the value. Now let's focus on that one. How can we just get rid of this? I want to grab my ID, and that ID, I don't want this ID to be a hard coded value. Here it is. So rather I want this to be coming from the user request, this one. So I need to grab it from the header or URL bar. So how can I do that? So there are inbuilt services provided for you. So you will use activated route, something like that. So I'll say route. Activated route is an inbuilt service. So add an import statement, it is part of router. And you're going to say this dot route dot snapshot dot params dot. There's a lot of nesting ID. So this ID and the ID that you have defined in your routing should be same. Name ID here. If you have said something like product ID, you have to use dot product ID here. So this router object, the activated route, contains the information about the current active route, and it has a snapshot. So snapshot has again params, all the parameters, URL parameters would be here. And this snapshot will also hold some data. We'll talk about the data tomorrow. So that's ID, and let's see if this works. With that one change, now it's dynamic. Go to products, click on this S9. We are seeing that one. Click on this iPhone 8. See, we are seeing that one. So this is how you grab it. So this ID, you can even subscribe to these parameters here. You can say params.subscribe. If someone is modifying the ID here, as soon as the ID is modified, you can reload the data. Take that as an assignment and see. So this I'm grabbing it directly, but you can subscribe to the changes of the parameters. And that would be a good read. Try to see if you can come up with something. So your parameters can also be observables. You can subscribe to their changes. Okay, so enough of this routing. We have seen a simple routing for today. That's enough. And now let's focus on, as we have few more minutes, focus on the refactoring. Remember, we have promised that we will be revisiting the code periodically and trying to make it or trying to keep it clean. Go to Paint and see the current organization of our application. So we have this app module and we have this shade module. Shade module contains all the shade logic, such as the time pipe and product service, console logger, file logger, and so on. And this one has components, all the components pretty much. Apart from that, today we have added routes. So something doesn't look right to me here. I don't want this app module to have anything other than the components. At least that's how I feel. I don't feel this right. So I want this route to go somewhere else. I want to have a separate module altogether. Not even I want to put it in shade module. Rather, I want to create app routing module or whatever it is. And I want to move this route stuff here. And these two modules going to serve app module like this. Let's go ahead and do that. First thing, go to shade folder. Here it is. Try to create a new file. I'm going to say app routing, app router module or something like that. Okay, probably I forgot the extension. .ts. Okay, export class app router module. Declarations, imports, and exports. Okay, now declarations, there are not going to be any declarations strictly speaking, because we are not trying to put anything inside this module. Rather, we are just trying to put all of our routing related stuff here. So go to app module and try to clean app module. So this constant routes are not needed. Get rid of them, paste it here. Now you have a bunch of errors and try to fix one by one. These are all related to missing import statements. Here it is. And we have our app module, and we need to import the routing module here, which is inbuilt router module. And pretty much whatever I said here, I'm going to say the same thing in my app router module. So if the name is little confusing, so just bear with it. Pay attention. This router module and this app router module. App router module is my module. The router module is an inbuilt module. And after that, try cleaning up wherever is or whatever import statements are not needed, because Visual Studio Code at this moment is not going to help you. Maybe in future release of this Visual Studio Code, you may get that feature where it will show unused import statements, but at this moment it's not capable of. So you have to be careful and try to clean up. It's not going to harm you if there are a couple of lines. Hey, Shashank, can you hear me? There was a power cut. Not sure whether I'm connected back again or not. Okay, that's great. So okay, so I was talking about the try to remove unused import statements. If there are a couple of unused import statements, it's not going to hurt you, but again, there is no reason to have them here. Okay, this app module, as I said, only contains components, nothing other than that. Providers, I can pretty much remove this. That's what actually I want my root module to do, only hold the components. Okay, now we have moved everything which is related to routing inside another separate module. So I'm going to just import that one here. I'll say app router module. That's an import. That is imported. Now we should still be in a good position. Come back, go to console. There is an error. It says now router outlet is not a known element. So we are seeing the same error what we have seen when we are trying to move the time pipe. I told you these are by default private to this module. So go to app router module. So you're using router module inside app router module. The router outlet is private to this module. If you're trying to access the directives of this module in some other module, you're going to see this error. So the fix for that is export them. So you can export one by one, or you can export the entire module. So I'm exporting entire module because I'll be using some of the directives. I don't want to export them one by one, saying router outlet, router link, and all those things. So I'm saying, okay, export everything, whatever is inside router module. So you can export a module or you can export individual pieces. It's up to you. So with that one change, we should be back up and running. Here it is. Click on this and everything is fine. Okay, looks like there is an error. Don't worry about that error. It's okay. Click on this. So we're getting some errors. We'll fix that. But the whole idea is refactoring here. So now our simple app contains 3 modules. Likewise, your application may contain tens of modules. It's a good practice. You can have as many modules as you want. Try to isolate things logically based on their functionality or what status they hold in your application. You can move them to modules. So let's come back and we still have few more minutes. So look at this error. It says cannot read property brand of undefined. This error is in product detail component. I'll remove this heading also. Doesn't make much sense. Go to product detail. Get rid of this. The error is coming because this data takes some time to load. Even before that, this template is being rendered. So that's why you're seeing that error. There are 2 fixes for that. So one thing is you don't load this data unless the product is available. This is like you're saying, okay, if product is truthy, then only load this. Remember, ngIf loads the template into the DOM. It doesn't just hide or shows. Rather, it adds or removes to the DOM. So you can say this because product is undefined by default. Once this becomes defined, this will show up. So let's see if that fixes the issue. And there are no errors. That fixed the issue. Okay. Now the other fix is this may not be possible every time. So the issue that is you're seeing here is product is undefined initially. On top of undefined, you're calling brand. Undefined is like a null. So not exactly null, but in C sharp, the what happens when you call some method or some property on null? It just throws an exception. It says object reference not set to an instance or something like that. So to avoid that, you say if product is defined, something like that. Whether it is defined or not, if it is defined, you'll do something. If it is not, you'll do something else. You can use ternary operator, but again, there is a better way to do this. Rather than having a ternary operator and every time writing a lot of code, just put this question mark here. Everywhere, wherever you see an opportunity that it can cause a null reference exception, you put a question mark, and that is called safe navigation operator. Okay, let's try this out. Still, you should not see the error. This really helps. It's a good idea that you have that wherever you see a chance of getting a null reference exception. See, we're not seeing any exceptions here. Ng if or this safe navigation operator, anything is fine. Okay, let me push these changes. So pretty much we have discussed routing. We know how to set up a simple routing, one thing, and we know how dynamically these parameters, again, dynamic routing with the help of a dynamic parameter. and we know how to read the value of this parameter with using activated route. And then probably, yeah, that's pretty much. We spent some time refactoring our code to a module. So as we have a couple of more minutes, so what I would like to do is I would like to design a component where I can save the data. So I would like to have a button or a link here. When I click on that, I should go to new product page where I can enter some data and save it. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, how to save the data, forms, and all those things later. But at least I would like to design in this time frame, design that component and page. First thing, I would like to have a link here. Go to product list component. Somewhere here, try to have a link. Router link is going to be /product/new. This route doesn't exist, so we need to create one. And I'm going to say new product. And I want this link to look like a button. Okay, when I click on this, okay, actually it is going to product/new page. Don't worry about that. The reason is the Angular actually matches the routes from top to bottom. So it checks whether this route is matching. It checks this one, and checks this one. And here the interesting stuff happens. So it is coming product/new. The new is considered as an ID here in this case. So it is navigating you to product detail page. See, you're not getting any data here, but it is now taking you to this route. The reason is obvious. This looks similar. The product/new and product/ID looks similar. Anyway, I'll add here products new. Now the component is going to be new product component. We don't have this component. Let's go ahead and create. I'll use again Angular CLI. This saves a lot of time. Okay. First, let's make sure the routing is working. Go to new product. I'll have just heading. Clean up everything. Go to app router module and add a reference to this because the reference is missing. Yes, that's a good catch. It won't. If you add it underneath the yes, the order is very important. We'll talk about that. Here it is. Still, this product ID is working. New product is working. So interestingly, if I just move it underneath the new, because Angular checks from top to bottom, the order is really important. So it won't work because it matches with this route first, and it never checks this one. So this is not going to work. So another interesting point is if you put this wildcard route on top of it, every time you click on a button, this will navigate you to home page. So that is also very important thing to note. So your wildcard route should go always down underneath all the routes. If not, it's going to again mess things up. Now I'll click on this, say it's going to product detail page. So order is really important. Let's do a control Z. Just like the order is important here is also it's very important. The wildcard route, if at all you're having, it should be the last one. Click on this, we have this new product. So we'll talk about that when we are talking about forms. And there is a lot of stuff. Again, forms is also a complex topic, probably takes a couple of sessions. So that's when we'll talk about that. We'll stop here, and tomorrow we'll talk again more about this routing. It's not the end of routing. Still we have nested routing, how we can have nested routing. This is one level of routing, a simple routing, but we can go nested routing. We have lazy loading. You want to lazy load some components. We have route guards. A lot of stuff is there. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay. So as you also had this issue, so I don't know, the every time I update my Windows, it messes some or the other thing, and this time it messed up the Git, so it doesn't save my passwords every time it asks for my password. It's okay, I'm going to enter every time, but I would rather have rather have liked it to save it somewhere, but it's messing things up. Yeah, probably. I don't know. I mean, it's auto update, so I believe that was a patch. Yeah, probably I'll check. This is not again first time. Every time I update, it messes up with my microphone or with some or the other thing. Okay, maybe then that could be an issue. Sure. Thanks, Shashank. I'll talk to you tomorrow same time then.